Okay, today we're going to be putting on the drawer pulls. And then I'm going to show you how to cover this up if it bugs you like it bugs me, these little areas where you can still see this. Now, there are a couple of ways. Some are easier than others. I use a lot of inexpensive plastic-headed pins to do this. Get my light a little better here. They're inexpensive, and I can use them as pins. Now, I also have in my collection some glass-headed pins that are more antique, and I've used those for specific pieces when I want something a little bit more hoi polloi maybe. But these inexpensive pins do the trick really well. Here's more of my antique, or I should say vintage. I think these are vintage glass-headed pins. I got at a secondhand shop in Jyväskylä. But I think these work just fine. They take paint well. And I also use, if you can see this, this is a bead on top of a toothpick. This goes a little bit differently. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways that I do these things. When it comes to, because we're going to be gluing some things down here, when it comes to using these pins, I've got some here that are prepared, and you can see I nip them off so there's like 2 millimeters or so of the pin still there, and that's what's going to go in the hole. Now you're asking me, why do I do the holes first? Because holding the drawer and then trying to put the hole into it with something like this awl is going to completely deform everything. So that's why I always put the holes in first. So let's put these over here. And the way that I do this is just a pair of pliers that has a pair of nippers in the bottom. And since this is, I don't want to like use my good nippers on this because it's not fabulous. I basically just kind of come in and get about 2 millimeters out, and then always make sure that you're holding on to this. This will go into my sharps. And just in case you know what my sharps are just where I put all of the bits of the used up X-Acto blades, all that kind of stuff, so I don't end up putting them in the trash and then hurting myself. So you can see here, it's got a teeny tiny little bit there, about 2.5 millimeters. And if you give it a poke in here, you can kind of even make it stick without glue. However, gluing it in is a much better option. Because this is metal, I use Gorilla Glue Clear. Why do I use this? Because I trust it. I don't use a super glue or anything like that. No cyanoacrylates or anything like that. I prefer this because it dries clear and it is an excellent product. So I have a little board and I just put a little dot on there, and then always make sure that you put the lid back on correctly. Then I grab a sacrificial, this is just a little sharp, pointy, you know me, I trim these things down to use them, the skewers. And then all I do is I get a little bit on the end, little tiny bit on the end, and I put it into the hole. And you don't need a lot. Technically, I'm going to waste most of this one dot because I use this kind of glue so infrequently. I use it when I have metal things because I want it metal and glass and some forms of plastic. When I know that using a cyanoacrylate will fog the plastic because I don't know what kind of plastic it is. I don't know what the chemical compound is. Let's do this again. And remember, I'm holding on both ends. Give it a nip. That goes over there into sharps. And seriously, you want about 2.5 millimeters. You don't want much more than that. And then I put it on and I press it. And it'll grab hold. And then most of the time, just because I don't want to get things lost, I'll just pop it back in here. If everything's nice and straight, pop it back in there and it's done. Now, when it comes to these kinds of pulls, it's a little different. I sometimes, since this is wood and this is a plastic, I used tacky glue, regular tacky glue. You can use the Gorilla Glue too. In fact, I think I am going to use a Gorilla Glue, so I don't want to waste it. And you can see here I have a toothpick and I have the 2 little beads there, and you can see the little pointy bit coming through. I have an old pair of toenail clippers, and I find that for some things this just works perfectly to just like nip off the end of something. Come on, focus, you stinker. So you can see I've just nipped that right off. So sometimes you find a tool that works. So these would be something that if I wanted to put them in the drawer, I would need to make a larger hole first. But you can see down here I've made a larger hole. And this is not gonna fit. However, you can see how the toothpick tapers a little bit when it comes close to the bead. Don't fall down like that, you little stinker. There are times in which I will use my blade, and again, keeping everything, I'll come in very carefully, just carve off a tiny bit. And if you're not comfortable with that, I will use, this is a little piece of, this is just wrapped around cardboard. I change it out every now and again. You can also use a nail file just to sand it down a little bit. In fact, I think I would recommend the sanding for someone who's maybe not comfortable with the knife. And you can see the difference I've done, the difference already. Now I continue to use the nippers here. And it's important that I've already made the holes in the drawers, or the doors, because I'm going to just nip off. And I really want to be able to see it. You can see how I'm like, let me get down here a little further. You can see that I know about how much is there. And I'm trying to do it as straight as I can. Now, why am I using the nippers and not a blade? Well, the blade won't work because the bead is there. And that's a bit of a problem. I will sometimes come in and nip these a little bit more if I think there's something else there that I don't like. Okay, now what you do. This is getting into the fiddly bits. That's gonna fit right there. And because this is wood and cardboard, I don't really have to worry much about, actually I'm going to use I can go ahead and use the tacky glue, but because I don't like to waste, I'm just going to use some of this. Now, the thing with Gorilla Glue is, after, I don't know, about, 5 to, yeah, because it's already kind of starting to get thicker. You've got about maybe 7 minutes or so before it's just not, it's going to be kind of like a jelly goo consistency and just not be able to be used anymore. So you can see here, I try to nip these close enough that it is, I have enough of a pull. You can see here there's some wood there, but not so close that it's like right on the surface. Now let's do this again with, let's do this again. And I really do, the using an emery board is much easier, but right now I just can't lay my fingers on an emery board. So that hole's a little big. So I'm gonna, let's go ahead and wear my nippers. And okay, I'm gonna find my Zen and I'm gonna take it down. Okay. Because you do not want to like make 15 of 16 of these and then just be like trying to find them on carpet. It's not fun. Let's see. Get this on camera. And I really like using the bamboo, partially because I just kind of treat it like something, you can tell I've been kind of like carving on it. I just carve away the glue that dries on it because I hate wasting things. Even if it's an old janky bamboo skewer. Okay, and you can see I'm kind of tipping it to see. They don't need to be perfect. And again, you know me, I kind of like it when things are a little off. So because this is triangular, I'm going to actually take some of the previous ones I made and then just set them so that you can't, let me take this camera off here. I kind of set them like this. You can see the old ones are here, and then I put these here so it can dry, you know, flat. So let's put this back up and then raise this up. Okay, so I also will, let me see if I can grab it back here. I am the queen of like little jars and little containers. I will keep these sorts of things around to hold these when I'm working on them so they don't go everywhere. These are like from the 99-cent store, no, dollar store. So you get like 6 little bottles for like, I don't know, $1.25. So I'm going to spill the rest of these out. And let's do this again because I don't want to waste this. It's starting to jellify. And if there's anything you know about me, you know I hate wasting things. I think this is one of the most convenient ways to do it. Because it just, the little bit of metal, there's like a little burr that will be created when you use the nippers to cut it. It kind of makes for a surface, a place where the glue can hold, and the little bit of metal to kind of jab into the board a little bit, if that makes sense. Okay, put that there. And then, oops, yuck, what's that? Again, some really absolutely thrilling cinematography. Okay, and then this one. I like both of these methods a lot. This one I think is one of the easiest because it's like, what have you got around? Because if you've got pins and beads, you'll be able to figure something out. Put this over here, and then I wanted to show you how I made. Let me put these back in here so I don't lose them. I wanted to show you. I just used a toothpick, and I've got my little piece of sandpaper around a block. And you know, toothpicks aren't made out of incredibly like hard stuff. It's just like a little wood scrap, basically, a little splinter. And you notice I'm doing this on one toothpick because what I can do then is use my blade and just cut it in half. So now I have 2 of these little things. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab a little bit of that glue because I'm going to show you how to do it. You all know how to work with tacky glue. It's just a little bit on the end. And then these sorts of beads, you just slide it on until it doesn't go down anymore. And because this is Gorilla Glue, and because it's already kind of starting to set up, these will be ready to work with in a little bit. Now you can see I got like a little bubbly bit there. Maybe you can't. There's a little bubbly bit there. I don't like that. I'm going to take a little scrap and just get rid of that because it will dry kind of in a, like a, that's the thing with the Gorilla Glue, it'll be more like a solid bump. So then all I do is I just set these aside and let them dry. And then remember, when you're making, you're getting these ready to go, you just nip off the little end. I sometimes will then add a little bit from a paint pen on the end so you can't see the white bit. And that helps. Now, I also wanted to talk about, let me get this stuff out of the way because I don't want to accidentally stick my fingers in glue. I'm going to raise this up and then I'm going to kind of move it here. Now, sometimes I also have been adding some feet onto things. I just use inexpensive beads. These were dollar store beads. I think for this entire bag, it was like, I don't know, like I got some in different sizes, like $3 worth of beads. Because I've used them over here for things like, I really liked using them for the ottoman and the chair. If you want, you could glue some beads onto the bottom. Now, it's a little trickier with the triangular, the triangular bit here. But if you know that you're going to, like, with this kind of piece of furniture, you'd kind of just be gluing it in place along the wall. That might be something that you might want to consider. And there's all kinds of different beads. They all take, there's the wooden ones, these plastic pony beads. They'll take paint, especially acrylic paint. So I'm going to set this aside for a moment and then move that over and move that over. The one thing about Gorilla Glue that I will say sometimes I don't like is that it takes a little bit to set up, whereas tacky glue, bam, she's in place and she ain't going nowhere. Now, when it comes to these little edges here, if you don't like them and you're not going to paint it, then sometimes I want to cover it even when I am going to paint it. So let's see, about how big is that? Oh, wow, that's just horrifically bad. Looks like these are running about 2, maybe 2.5, maybe a little less than 2. So this is what I do. I get a scrap of paper. I actually don't measure it either. I kind of eyeball it. Because again, when you're working with a certain type of measurement, you kind of start memorizing like what stuff looks like and what stuff doesn't. So I know this is probably about 1 millimeter. I think this is going to be too small. Oh, actually that looks pretty good. So if you want to edge things, and this is just like super duper easy, you really don't have to. I think I'm going to use this one because I like this applicator better. You don't really have to cover these if you don't want to, but if you're like me and it's a, okay, here we go. Okay, I got a little bit too much glue on there. And this is one of those times where I will come back with my finger and dab things around. And don't wipe it on yourself like I do, because that's just being disgusting. And then you can just lay this in. I like that tacky glue will dry clear. So if you're seeing little bits of it like this, as long as it's not like a big bubble of it, you're going to be okay. Okay, and then put this into place. And hold it with my thumb. And it's going to cut, right? There. And you can see I can kind of smoosh it around a little bit. Again, have fun with this, you know. I think this edge would look like adorable with like a little doily or something hanging down. A lot of the pieces that I've seen, that I've referenced, will have like a little bit of lace hanging here, because this is kind of like a tchotchke kind of show-off thing. And I do plan in the paper version of this, down here will be some tabs, and then there will be a fold down with a little lacy bit. I think that'll look really cute. So, like I said, you can measure it if you want to, but you really, really don't have to. I would recommend doing this with a single layer of paper, because sometimes with the doubled up paper, it will start to come apart. Now here's something I do a lot. I cut on the same edge, and I know how much of this I need. So what I'm going to do, this is called the Katie Lazy way. I can cut it right here. So if you've got, I just subtract that bit off, and then let's cover this one. I cut this one a little longer. Let's see what this looks like. And remember, I mean, if you're working on this like I'm working on these, you're just basically getting to see my practice stuff, where I'm working out all of the problems with the design, experimenting with what I want. You know, do I want it to do this? Did I want it to do that? When I designed this, I thought it was just going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and I changed around how large things are, where things will go. When I started working on these pieces, I didn't imagine that I would be adding anything else onto these, that I hadn't even really thought about doing these kinds of pulls. But when you sit down and you kind of start just messing around, then you realize that the chair you've designed, the reason why it looks off is because it needs some legs. So, you know, and then you look around and it's like, what do I got? What can I use? That's definitely Elizabeth in my head. What do I have? What can I use? So I'm going to go ahead and conclude the cupboard for now, unless there's other things that you all would desperately want to talk to me about about this, and I'll answer any questions that you have. But that's how I do it. That's how I put these things together. That's how what I've been doing to kind of goof around, and I shouldn't say goof around. It's when I say playing around with my materials, it's what can I make this do? I have an idea in my head. I have these things. Can I make what I have do this? And when I say goof around and play around, I feel like I'm kind of downplaying how much goes on, because I do need to play with the material. I do need to figure out, you know, what is the height that I want to build these at. I'm kind of aiming at some things that are abstract in my head. This is just the way I go about putting these things together. And it's not play necessarily. Play in the idea that like children play. I have a goal in the end. Play, if you're all what is it, Piaget, play is the work of childhood. They're learning all kinds of other stuff through play. What I'm doing is seeing what my materials will do for me. Okay? Anywho, this will be the last video. And I will see you in other videos, because, of course, I've got more stuff that I want to do and things that I definitely need to get up for sale on my site. So, thank you, patrons, for sticking with me. And we'll see you in the next video. Okay?